Welcome to Living in Color. I'm your host, Farah Nasser, and today we're talking about ethnic names and identity. Why people with cultural names decide to change it, especially in Hollywood. Why learning to pronounce someone's name is important, sometimes difficult though, and even repeated incidents of minorities being misidentified by popular magazines and news outlets. I'm joined by YTV host Mark Suki and freelance writer and anti-rape activist Roslyn Talusan. Thanks for joining us. Let's start off by talking about why you both think that people change their names. We know this happens in Hollywood all the time, but it happens on resumes too in workplaces. I'll start with you, Suki.
I have like so many aunts and uncles that have their like born name, which is something like of a Guyanese descent, and then they have their name that's like Paul.
Right.
Like my dad, for example, his name is C. Paul, but at work everyone calls him Paul. But like, how hard is it to put C in front of the Paul?
Right, it's not that complicated.
So they do it just to make it easier on everyone else in Canada.
Well, your name is interesting too. Your birth name, Mark.
Is Mark, yeah. So my birth name is Mark, and my brothers are named Steve, Mike, and Chris. And my mom was like, well, we gave you those names because we didn't want you to get bullied in school. Interesting, right?
What was your mom's name?
So my mom's, she was born with the name Chimeli, which is a gorgeous name, and then she goes by Christine.
Right.
Yeah.
So she changed it because of her own experience and wanted to keep it easier for you
Yes,
guys.
exactly.
Right. Roslyn, let me put it over to you now.
I mean, there have been studies, I think, where people who are hiring are more likely to hire someone with a common name, like Alice or something.
Right.
Whereas if your name is obviously ethnic, it's a bit harder for you to, make it through the hiring process.
What's your relationship with your name?
I used to kind of hate my name. Growing up in the beaches in Toronto, which was predominantly white, people would mispronounce my last name, which is Talusan, but people would pronounce it Talusan or something like that.
Right.
But I've grown to love my name.
There are people in the city who have an Asian name or a Chinese name, and then they have a kind of Anglo name. Why is that?
I know some Asian people can actually pick their own English Anglophone name, which I think is great, but I don't think it should be necessary. I don't think that's something that we should all be striving for or have to do in order to be successful, to have a life in this country.
Who's the onus on? Like, what do you think people should do, or why do you think it's important? Is it important to correct people? Would you correct people?
Yeah, I think it's important to correct people because if you don't correct people, then it kind of becomes your nickname. Like naturally, we want to call people by like some sort of pet name if they're your close friend, but if that becomes the mispronunciation of your name, then you're doomed. Then you're the wrong identity, right? Yeah. I feel like a name is someone's identity. I compare it to being, part of the LGBT community, and there's the gender thing right now. People, want to identify as male, female, non-binary, and I think that growing up, we were, in my generation, it was male or female, and now we're entering a time where it's not. It's whatever you want to be,
right.
And it's my bad sometimes if I call somebody he or she, but maybe they don't identify like that, but it's up to that person to be like, hey, by the way, that's not how I identify. First off, don't assume. Second of all, this is what I, identify as. And then if I, as the person that made the mistake, want to take that and educate myself, which you should, I believe, then that's on me. So I think the onus is on the person to correct and give the information, and however that person takes the information is on the other person.
We also shouldn't be afraid of speaking up for ourselves and to, correct people when we need to. For me, when I do correct someone, there's always that little fear at the back of my mind where it's like, are they gonna make fun of me for holding them accountable? Are they gonna not care? Are they, But at the end of the day, it is really important that we all kind of start sticking up for ourselves like that. And I mean, we could pronounce Daenerys Targaryen, no problem, right?
Game of Thrones characters,
True.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So how hard is it to correct yourself when saying Roslyn Talusan?
Yeah.
Right.
It definitely ties into like the mainstream things, right? Like it just so happened that we have a bunch of POCs that are now like the leads in a lot of, mainstream things.
Right.
Or their character names are harder to say. So I feel like now that we're going into a time where like, POC actors and actresses are becoming the stars of these big shows, whereas back in the day it was like I don't know,
It wasn't like that.
Brad Pitt all the time, which is really easy to say.
Right.
That's also
the four-letter names.
right?
Yeah.
That's educating everybody going forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, it's helping.
And it wasn't always this way. I mean, there are people whose names have changed in the country because some custom agent put a silent letter in their name, and now their whole name is different, but they were scared to say something because they were just happy to have a seat at the table. I know for me in my career, I mean, at the beginning, I said, okay, well, they're calling me Farah. At least they're calling me something. At least I'm here, you know? And it took for my mom to say, that is not your name. Stop saying that, you know? And it changed things for me. But I have to tell you, it is exhausting. It's
Absolutely.
exhausting correcting people, is it not?
Yeah. It's emotional labor. It's like, it's basically fighting for people to recognize your humanity, right? It's like, no, my name isn't Rose McIver, whatever. But that doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of having you actually say my name.
Right.
You know?
But how do we get to a place where it's normal and we don't have to correct people? Like, how does that happen?
It'd be nice if people would ask. Like when Ali was speaking to me, she was like, "How do you pronounce your last name?" It's just when people make the effort to say, "Am I pronouncing this properly?" Whereas like when in my high school graduation, for example, they would just be like, Roslyn Talusan, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Right.
And then they just move on.
And then that's fine.
Right, and it's just like kind of a mouthful of garbled words
Yeah.
and just kind of, and sometimes, I mean, I feel like even sometimes with me, I'm not even referred to by my name. Like they just say, you know, she or, you know, like because they're so scared to say it wrong, which also is. I want to talk to you both about something because I don't know if you remember recently the movie Crazy Rich Asians, right? There was a photo and people in the photo were misidentified or people who were not even there at all. I mean, how does that make you feel?
I can see how it could happen, which is very, very, very sad to say out loud, but I can see how someone can make that misinterpretation of someone and give them the wrong name. The problem is that like we're so used to seeing a specific face in Hollywood that is a recognizable face in Hollywood and they're in every single movie. But then, you know, you put a cast together of POCs and you call them different names that they're not their names, and it's like, everyone's a Google away, right? Like everyone is a Google away. Just like do your research. It baffles me that that mistake would be made, but it goes back to just asking how to say someone's name. Like it's as easy as, okay, who is this person in the picture? Let's Google the cast and play, you know, the memory game and like who's who.
Right.
You have to do your research in any media outlet.
Yeah.
So
it's just people being irresponsible.
Yeah,
and just like not caring. And it also comes down to like the tokenization thing where, you know, oh, this must be Jackie Chan because it looks like Jackie Chan. But it's like, dude, come on. That's just because you're familiar with one face doesn't mean that one face is going to be the same person across the board. Like, make some effort, take some responsibility.
But that's how, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's how it was set up, like in movies back in the day and TV shows. There was like the token black guy.
Yeah.
Or there was like the token Asian guy or the token brown guy.
Yeah.
But now that there's a bunch of them.
And now there's
like,
a bunch of different things, right? It's very interesting.
But it's interesting, it happens in real life too, right? So our producer Ali of Living in Color, she was saying she worked somewhere and there was another black woman and their names were interchanged all the time. And this happens in workplaces all the time, right? Where people just call you something because they think that you look the same, or they might have even thought they were the same person, you know? Like it's...
When I was in high school, I had an English teacher who called me Danielle constantly. And obviously my name isn't Danielle. And I would correct him, but it's because there was another girl in my class who was, never in class. She was half Asian, and she had really long black hair, just like I did. And he always got us mixed up, even though I'm not Chinese, I'm visibly colored. So it's really frustrating for people to just kind of get you mixed up with someone else and then continue to do that without taking accountability, without realizing what they're doing is problematic.
Yeah, and people also have a hard time like seeing people so for example, like I'm right now the host of YTV, there was someone before me, Carlos. People call me Carlos because they just don't see a different person for some strange reason.
Right.
So that's also like a little bit frustrating. Yeah.
And like the whole not seeing color thing is ridiculous too.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's like, okay, but my race is a significant part of who I am, right?
It's the first thing you see,
It's a
right?
beautiful thing of all of us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This conversation's been great. Very helpful. Thank you so much to
Thank
you both
you.
for your time. And thank you for watching Living in Color. Thank you for watching Living in Color. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have an idea for a future Living in Color episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comment section.
People have been mispronouncing my name my entire life, and I don't blame them, or even get mad, because there are many different ways to pronounce Alia, Aliyah, Alia, Alaya. But sometimes people try to avoid saying my name entirely, or they'll call me by my last name, Adam, to my face. And eventually it gets a little tiring and even awkward to continuously correct people, but I always do it because I love my name and it carries important cultural significance. It should be treated with respect. I'm curious how others with non-white names or even longer names feel. And for those who've shortened or even changed their names entirely, do you ever feel that part of your identity has been lost?